on the guitar and his voice. So again, all about what I was saying before. Get the room treated as much as you can with whatever you had. And then use your ears also, like recording a guitar as opposed to, vocals. You could use your ears to see how the vocal sounds. If you're using a dynamic microphone, you could usually get 3 to 6 inches away from it. It'll sound really good. Condenser, probably a foot. Start with a foot and then move up, forward, and backwards and see how your voice sounds in that condenser microphone, if it sounds better or worse. If you get closer to a microphone, there's going to be more low end, which will probably give you... This microphone actually doesn't have a proximity effect. It's called proximity effect. So I can get right up on it and it'll be the same tone as if I move back a little bit. But most microphones do have a proximity effect, especially condenser microphones. If you're talking about a Blue Yeti, for example, the closer you get, the more bass is going to come out of your voice, and also more top end, I think. So you get further away for a more natural tone, and you'll probably have less issues, like less pops and less, You use your ear as you're recording to see if it sounds good or natural to you. And you could record and listen back and adjust accordingly and try different things out and take time to place the microphone in the right spot, the spot that you want it. And the same thing goes for acoustic guitars. And acoustic guitars, if you do not record right the first time, you're like up a creek without a paddle. There is nothing worse than trying to make a poorly recorded acoustic guitar sound good. It's impossible. I've done it more times than I'm happy to admit. Acoustic guitars can sound beautiful or they could sound like utter garbage. And so take the time to mic an acoustic guitar, Jesse. This is the most important thing. Start with placing, you have a condenser, you told me, so I'll just take my condenser out for visual here on this Facebook Live. Here we go. We got a condenser microphone. And hold on one second. Here's an acoustic guitar. So a good place to start would be about 1.5 feet from the 12th fret, right smack in the middle of the guitar, just pointing at the 12th fret, approximately at about 1.5 feet away. And then you can move it up, move it back, move it towards the center, towards the neck, towards the bridge. Sorry, not the bridge, the headstock. But that's like a good place to usually start with recording acoustic guitar. And then you have to use your ear. There's no other way because every guitar sounds different. And if you get too close to the guitar sound hole, it'll get too boomy and it's like impossible to fix basically. So just take the time to make sure it sounds the way you hear it in your head when you place the microphone. And if it sounds the way you want it to sound, then trust your ears and go with that. Live streaming is awkward. I'm used to the comfort of nobody seeing anything. So y'all saw me lose my microphone there. Okay, that's all for the pre-questions, the questions that came out before we started this live. So let me just look in the thread and see what's going on here. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Okay, here we go. Let's see what Noah asked, does it matter how close you are to the microphone when considering how picky to be about the room? Yeah, that's a good question. I guess it does and it doesn't. When you get closer to the microphone, you will get less of the room involved, but you might have other artifacts that are just as bad. So if you get too close to the microphone and it gets too boomy, then you're going to have a whole other set of issues. So I can't emphasize the room enough. The room will make the source sound amazing, and when the source sounds amazing, it'll be much easier to place the microphone. So I would still try to work on the room, and then use your ear about what sounds best, how close to the mic you get. Like if you're recording 3 inches of the mic, does the room matter? It does. It still will matter, but it won't matter as much, I guess, as if you're 12 inches away, right? 12 inches away, there's a lot. The mic is going to hear more ambience. I didn't mention this. Different microphones have different polar patterns. A polar pattern is basically like how it faces, what it's actually hearing. So most microphones you'll see have a cardioid pattern. It looks like a heart, which means that what's smack in front of the microphone is what's heard more. And as you go off axis, you're actually not going to hear this, but if you go off axis, you're going to hear less and less tone, basically. It gets lower because it's hearing less from the sides than it's hearing right in front of it. So that's what's great about a cardioid mic. And different microphones have different patterns. There's something called omni, where it hears everything around equally. So if you wanted to record like 4 guys or girls singing around one microphone, that would be the way to do it, to put the microphone in omni if you have one like that. Not everybody does these days because most consumer mics are cardioid only these days. But you can definitely take advantage of the polar pattern to get rid of extraneous noise or to pick up the extraneous noise if that's something you're wanting. Like if you're recording drums and you want to get a room tone, then maybe an Omni is a good opportunity to get that sound. Let's go. Okay, I'll go back to Cheryl's thing about GarageBand now. GarageBand is super powerful. Again, there's so much built into it, and I would just strongly urge you to start with their presets and see what you like or don't like about it, and tweak the inner settings within those presets. Open up the EQ and open up the compressor and see what works. Noah says, I find recording messy bedroom is a great place for getting a dry sound. Totally could be. I have no idea, but if you send me that audio, I'd love to hear it. Shira says, I'm on a Zoom call. Can you leave this up so I can view later? Yes, I will leave it up. I addressed your question and I will leave it up. Okay. Anybody have any other questions about recording at home before I sign off? Because I could keep going. I got 8 viewers. Somebody must have a question. I'm just waiting here. Hold my beer. Okay, I guess as we wait, I'll try to think of other things that are important to talk about. The DAW, the software used, for the most part, doesn't matter. All DAWs record the same way. They sum audio the same way unless something is broken. People get hung up about which DAW to use, and I think it doesn't really matter. You just kind of have to jump in with one and go all in on it. I will say that Audacity is a very limited DAW. Audacity is powerful. It can do a lot of things, but if you're doing music production, it's just very difficult to get a lot of things. It's difficult to get plugins involved in it. It's difficult to mix. It's not very user friendly in that sense. So I would say it's not a professional DAW for music production. But once you're talking about Cubase, Logic, Pro Tools, Studio One, Reaper, they all work. They all do a great job. You got to just experiment and see which one works for you, and just go all in on it. And you won't know if you like it. People say, "Oh, I wish I had this, I had that," but it really doesn't matter. Oh shoot, I got a bunch more questions. I may have missed these, but just jump in with whatever you're using. Okay, here we go. Noah says, what proportion of the time do you spend recording versus mixing? That's a good question. I spend a lot more time recording than mixing if I'm working on a song production. Mixing depends. Some songs take 3 hours to mix. Some songs take days to mix. Productions usually take a bunch of sessions, and so I usually spend a lot more time recording, analyzing. I work differently than most people. I kind of work in small blasts, so I'll invite a client over, an artist over to, we'll work for 3 hours, and then I'll send them home. We'll both listen back. We'll get objective about what we did. Then we'll come in, work another 3 hours, take it home. I do short little bursts until the song, we feel the production is there. And then, mixing, if I'm producing a song, it usually doesn't take me so long to mix it because I'm so deeply involved in it. I'm kind of developing a new method where, based on a conversation I had with Mixerman. Mixerman, by the way, has amazing books on recording and producing. He has one that you should definitely check out. It's like the Musician's Guide Handbook to a Killer Record. It's I'll try to put a link in the comments when this is over. It's a great book for getting started doing your own home recordings. I would definitely recommend checking it out. But he told me about this method of mixing where you kind of build a mix template. Sorry, don't build the mix template. You build the mix as you go, and then you export whatever you're up to for whatever you're up to in the production. So, you'll have a first day of tracking, you'll get drums and bass and guitars, right? So then you build a mix of whatever you have so far. You export that mix, and then you make a vocal session, and then you do the vocal session on top of that mix. And then you export those vocals, pop it into the mix session. So you always are building on top of a mix session. So the mix session is already getting in the way, almost it's getting close to completion as you're moving throughout the song production. So by the time the production's done, you're pretty close to the mix. That's kind of where I'm at right now. But when I'm mixing other people's stuff, it's just mixing. And usually if I'm mixing somebody else's stuff, it's between, 3 to 10 hours. It depends. It depends on how well it's recorded. It depends how many other little things I have to do. It depends on a lot of stuff. Mic for choir, I would say a condenser microphone would be good for a choir. If you want to get a choral sound, you want to record the Gestalt. It's a psychology term, means like the greater amount. Then you want to get a condenser microphones are good for that, right? Like you would use a condenser microphone also to record like overheads on the drums. If you want to get a big picture, you're usually going to use a condenser. Dynamics are great for vocals in a, things that it's right in front of drums, for example. Large diaphragm condenser or pencil condenser would probably be good. Anything. You can make any mic sound good if you record it in a good space and you place it in the right spot. Claudia, what did you ask? Best way to record voice and guitar, one at a time or together? Honestly, that depends on your performance. If you're going to perform better by recording the guitar and the voice at the same time, then do that. But to get a cleaner tone, you record the guitar and then you record the voice, and then you have control over both those elements in the mix later on. That would get a more pristine audio sound probably, but if you're not going to perform as well, then it's not worth it. Moshe Mandel asks, what's special about condenser microphones? There's nothing special about condenser microphones other than they are microphones and they sound good often. Condenser microphones are, again, they're very sensitive and they hear things, almost like a human would. Very pristine quality. Different condensers have different, they sound slightly different. They'll have a slightly different EQ curve, and they'll sound different depending how close or far away it is from a source. So, people have mic blockers because different mics sound good for different things and on different elements. So I have a few condensers, and I have different kinds of condensers. There's like the mini condensers, the pencil condensers. Let's see if I could get one on. I found my pencil condensers. Okay, this is an example of a pencil condenser. They have a smaller diaphragm, and they sound a little different than a large diaphragm condenser. I think they pick up more transients. I might be wrong about that, but they just sound different. I'll often use them on drum overheads or recording a piano or something like that. Or acoustic guitars. They sound great on acoustic guitars as well. But also large diaphragm condensers sound great. They just have different sound. So there's all kinds of different condenser microphones. Hilla Alone, aka my dad, shout out, says, what does DAW stand for? Digital Audio Workstation. So any program that you're using for recording is a digital audio workstation. Let's see. What did I miss? Where to place the mic. Okay, so I already discussed this earlier in the feed about putting the microphone in front of the guitar and your voice. And the main thing is to use your ear, record a sample, see what it sounds like, and adjust accordingly. But you could listen back, and there's more information in there. Rafi says, I don't know why, but I always seem to do sound check. All is good and clean. Then I record, and I realize I'm in distortion because I can't control my energy when I vlog. It goes way up than in the sound check. That is a statement, I guess, more than a question. But you don't need to record so hot. If you're recording 24-bit, you could check your settings in your DAW before you start recording. But if you're recording with 24-bit audio or more, then you have a lot of headroom, which means that you can record much lower and raise it afterwards, and it'll still sound clean before you get the noise floor that start to get that sound below everything. So yeah, so just record lower and don't worry about it too much. You can raise it afterwards, and you can raise the parts that are not. You could compress it, you can raise it. There's so many ways to get things sounding good. Just no matter how good and clean it looks, just err on the side of caution and record even lower. Record with less gain. Noah Barshain, problems of being a DJ. Digital audio workstation. Okay. Thank you for replying to my dad, Yosef. Aviva says, show us your pillows. Ooh, okay. Right behind me, I have a pillow. And there's another pillow in the corner over there. I don't know if I could get it because I'm on my desktop. That's the pillow right there. Let's see, right there. And Aviva got me those for my birthday, and they are super dope in the studio. Why am I wearing headphones? Because I'm actually listening to myself recording.